let's make a centerpiece for 4th of July. Hi, and welcome back to my craft room. My name is Kelsey, and today we are working on this 4th of July centerpiece. If you are new to my craft room, or if you don't know, please don't forget to check the description. That is where you will find the blog post, which will have the materials and tools, as well as the free SVG file. Let's get started in Cricut Design Space. So this setup is like my normal setups where it should pretty much just be a load and go. You can of course resize whatever you need to. I am cutting everything out with 12 by 12 paper. So the most I can do is 11.5 by 11.5. So I maxed out my space as much as I can. I try to make these SVGs where you just upload them and they're sized properly, but for some reason, whenever I upload things into Cricut Design Space, sometimes things are a little off, but ratio-wise, they are correct. So meaning you want to change everything together if you're going to change one thing. So that includes the flowers and all of the side pieces as well. They all fit correctly. So you don't want to just size the hat a different size and leave the flowers really small. I mean, I guess you could if you want to add more flowers. It's really up to you, but I think you understand what I'm saying. You can also at this point use your color sync if you want to change around any colors. That's totally up to you. I always leave colors up to you. And that's really it. You could just upload this and go. It already includes the perforation lines on both the 3D stars and the hat part. So the folding, everything is already perforated, so you're good to go. And I'm literally just changing everything over with color sync. And that's it. And now I'm going to send it over to my machine. And if you'd like, you can always move things onto different mats to save sizes. Obviously, I could not move this onto this mat, so I had to move it back. But if you need to move anything, you can do so before you cut. I ended up making this on 7 mats, so I did need 2 red pieces of paper. But this will really depend on your size of your paper. Also the size you make your hat. So it's totally up to you. So yours might look a little bit different. Also the colors that you use. And then as for cutting, I always, for almost every paper craft project, use the medium cardstock setting, and I always cut everything in fast mode. And if you don't know what fast mode is, please drop me a comment because I would love to do a video on that. A lot of people didn't know what fast mode was. All right, jumping into assembly, we are starting off with folding in on all of our perforated lines on our tabs. The hat goes together pretty quickly. The longest part is going to be your flowers mostly. So I'm folding in here. If you're using textured cardstock or pattern cardstock, make sure that you keep your pattern or your texture on the outside. And so I'm folding in on all of these, and then there is a flap on the outside that you're going to attach to the other side. So it just kind of rounds out as much as you can to keep it that kind of hat shape. And you can fold in on this line as well. And then you're going to attach the 2 on the side, keeping that flap on the inside. And I'm using craft glue for this. You can of course use hot glue. It just depends on what you have. Honestly, I just use my craft glue a lot to keep things flat. But I will switch over to my hot glue when I do my flowers. I prefer the hot glue for my flowers on this project. And I will keep the flower SVG separate as well as inside of this project, just so if you want to use the flower on something else, you have that option. So now I'm going ahead and I'm letting this dry. So take your time, make sure it is sealed completely. And I'm still rounding it out a little bit because you don't want it to be like a teardrop, you want it to be round. So now we're gonna go and grab our top piece. That's gonna be your smaller circle. I know that seems strange, but it is the smaller circle, and you're going to attach this with glue onto the top. Now again, you can use hot glue. It'll definitely be a little bit faster than if you used craft glue. You have to hold it more if you use craft glue. So just keep that in mind. And you also want to try to keep your shape here as best as possible. You want to keep it as round as you can. So that's why I work in sections. I attempted to try to stick my hand into it, but my hand is too big. So I'm just using my fingers to go around and keep it round. Like with many of these 3D projects that I bring you, the main key is just to be patient and take your time and go around. I wish I worked this fast, but these do take me a while. So don't think I'm just flying through them. Take your time and be patient with yourself. And once you have that attached, we can go ahead and flip it over and attach our bigger base, the bigger circle, onto the bottom. I've never held my glue like that before, and I am kind of scared on why I'm doing that now, but you know, it's fine. And I'm just going around, and this one's going to be, again, a little bit tricky because you can't use your fingers to stick it down. So you're going to have to stick it down and hold it there. And then I went back around with some of my glue to attach it on. And you also want to make sure it's as centered as possible. Our next step is going to be attaching our white side panels. Make sure you do this first before you put on the blue wraparound. And you're going to want to line these up to the top of the hat, not the bottom of the hat. And you have 4 panels, so you're going to do 1 on the seam. I think that looks really nice. It cleans it up a little bit. And then you're going to do 1 directly across from it. And then you're going to go in the middle of those 2 on both sides. And you can see that I switched over to my hot glue because it was just easier for me to work with at this point. And once you have all 4 panels on, the next thing to do is to move on to the blue piece that wraps around. And you're going to want to get this as tight as possible. Technically, it does fit around perfectly, but if it might have a little bit of a gap, just depending on how tight you can get it. So go ahead and grab your blue wrap and the bigger part, I guess you could say, like the curve. So the curve is going to be towards the bottom. I hope that makes sense. So it's going to be this way, like where it curves and it kind of opens up to a cone where the larger part is at the top, just like the hat. I made it so that it fits around. So, you know, do your best to pull it as tight as possible. It might, again, have a little bit of a gap, but you're going to put that in the back and you can always cover it up with a star. So no big deal. Don't forget to put the glue on the other side of the flap so you can overlap it. And then once you glue that down, I just use my fingers to attach it. And again, I'm pulling as tight as I possibly can, because it's pretty much as snug as it can be around the hat. You'll have this little blue collar. So for this next part, I'm zooming in just a little bit because I want you to see I'm folding on my star on all of those perforation marks that are there already for you. They are pretty tiny, so just be prepared, but you are folding in on all of this to make the star 3D. I did include the perforation marks. You can contour those out if you don't want them, but I'm going in and folding in on all of those. Basically, it goes from the tip of one part of the star to the other side, and then you kind of fold in on the corners and you get this little 3D star. And you're going to do this for all of them. So they're just extra decoration that'll go around the hat. So I'll skip ahead. I'm not going to show you all of the stars that I made 3D. So now once you have all of your stars made, you can start attaching them. I actually ended up having 1 extra, and where you put these is completely up to you. I put mine around the blue band, that way they stood out, and I use my hot glue gun to attach them on. So you don't need a ton, but you put it on the inside and then just stick it onto the side, and I would suggest holding it for like a second or 2 just to make sure it's adhered, or lay it flat like I did. All right, so we're jumping over. We have our stars attached, and now we are going to start making our flowers. And I finally got some ball rollers, and I switched. I had this really big one I was using, but I think there was something sticky on it, so it was like not moving around my paper really easily, so I switched over to a smaller one. And I'm just rolling these into kind of like a circle. So I'm starting in the middle and then rolling around the edges. And I did the same thing for all of the petals. So for all the blue, white, and red. And obviously that'll depend on what colors you make them, but they're all going to be the same. And I'm just using like a foam sheet that I usually use for shaker toppers as my padding. You can also use like a sponge, or if you have a petal pad, I guess you would call it, that they sell, you would obviously use that as well. But I'm just using some foam sheets that I have. I will say though, I got these ball rollers off of Temu. They were so cheap. They were like $5, maybe even less than that. And they do cramp your hand after like a little while. Maybe I'm holding them wrong. I don't know. Maybe it's my nails. But my hands were cramping like crazy when I did this. And if you don't have a ball roller, you can always use like a teaspoon, the back of a teaspoon for it. You don't have to spend the money on these. And I'm just rolling mine into groups. So I'm keeping the white all together, the blue all together, and the red all together. The white petals and the red petals in my instance are the same size. They are the smaller ones. And then the blue ones are a little bit larger. So for each flower, you use 2 of the larger ones and 4 of the smaller ones. And for assembly, I use hot glue for this. It's totally your preference if you want to use craft glue, but you're going to offset these. The first layer I do opposite, so they curve away from each other. And I do also like offset so that the petals show in between each one. And then for the rest of them, they are going to be offset just like this as well, but they are going to go the same direction. I was testing to see if I liked the opposite direction better, but I didn't. So I went with all the same direction going forward up to the top. And the easiest way I suggest doing this is do your red and your white, offset those, and then place it onto your blue, and then do another layer of red and white, offset those, and then offset them on top of the next layer. And you're gonna make all 3 flowers the same way, and then we will get to the center in 1 second. And so I'm using hot glue for each layer. Just keep in mind when you go to glue this on to your actual hat that the hot glue might loosen the hot glue that you've already put on. So just be patient while it sets onto your hat. And so I'm just finishing up on my next layer for the flower. And again, it's 2 of the big ones and then 4 of the small ones. So if you're using this for a different project or you did different colors, you know how many of each to use. And then you are gonna glue all of the petals together. So there should be 6 layers of petals. And then the center, we are gonna use a quilling tool, or you can use tweezers to roll them up kind of tight. And I used gold glitter paper for my center. And you want to roll the glitter on the inside, not the outside. Because when you go to fold these out, so see I have my gold on the inside, when you go to fold these out, if you have the glitter on the outside, when you fold them out, you'll just see the blank paper on the inside. So you want the gold to be on the inside when you roll it. So when you feather it out with your fingers, you see the gold on the outside. And so I'm rolling it up into a little ball. There's no like size or anything that I'm looking for here. And then I'm going to use my hot glue to close the end together. And then I am going to add hot glue to the bottom of it where obviously the center is not like able to be folded out. And I'm just going to stick that right into the center of our flower. So nothing super fancy, just glue it down. Again, I'm using hot glue for all of this. You can use craft glue for sure. And you just stick it right in the middle and then take your fingers and feather these out to make it a little more expanded. So you'll see I have it in, and then I just take my fingers and I gently pull them out to fluff all of those little center pieces out. And here is our final little flower. And you'll do that technique for all 3 flowers. So now for our final little like sparkler that goes on top, you're gonna roll this in. And again, I did glitter, but your glitter is going to want to be on the outside this time. And you are going to start with the side that has no stars on it and work towards the side that does have stars on it. And try to keep this as rounded as possible, and so that it's not like the sticks are opposite each other, but more rounded, so they're all over the place. And then just like our centers for our flowers, we're going to glue those sides shut and then glue the bottom down to the top of the hat. So you can do all 3 of them and then glue it down. I just went for it. And as I did it, I was like, I probably should have made all 3 first. But I'm just fanning it out a little bit, and you're going to do the same thing for all 3 and then stick those on to the center. And then obviously your last step is just going to be to glue your flowers down. I used hot glue again, and I kind of stuck them like in between where each of those sparklers were. You can make the flowers a little bigger if you want to. That's totally up to you. I left them in the same ratio that I had made the SVG in. So it's up to you if you want them to cover a little bit more of that bottom, but I think it looks really cute the way it is. You can also always make an extra flower if you want it to like really be tight, or even an extra 2 flowers, whatever you want to do. At the end of the day, I just provide a template and the creativity is really up to you. And so once you glue all 3 flowers down, your Uncle Sam hat centerpiece 4th of July decor is done. And here is our final hat. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for joining me today while we made this 4th of July centerpiece. I hope you enjoyed making it as much as I did. If you enjoyed making my craft, Please don't forget to give this a thumbs up and share it with some of your crafty friends who might like to make it as well. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It helps me so much, and I love bringing you new crafts every week. Stay crafty!